Ever since October 7th, we have all been following the news on television, on the internet, speaking by phone to friends and relatives in Israel, and many of us have actually visited Israel. And when someone from our own community, someone that we know well, comes back, we are always eager to hear that firsthand account, because everything that you hear on the news and on the press, there's this attempt to filter and to try to be objective. But when you go and you come back and report on the emotion and what you saw with your own eyes, that's a very different kind of report, a very different kind of testimony. And we are very fortunate this morning to have with us a member of our congregation, Rachel Scheinberg, who recently took a Hadassah trip to Israel. And even though she has been to Israel many times, this trip was especially important and poignant and impactful for her. She has been part of the Jewish community here in Orlando for more than 20 years. She and her husband, Jeremy, came to Orlando in the 1990s. Then they moved away for a bit to Minneapolis and Washington, D.C., and they have now returned, and they are raising their family here with their children, Sophia and Jake. Rachel is a native of New York. She's the daughter of a very involved Hadassah member who was born here in this country, and her father is an Israeli veteran, the son of Holocaust survivors from Poland and Russia, and her father was an officer in the IDF who fought valiantly in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. And Rachel's parents are with us this morning. We welcome them. So good to have you here with us. Rachel grew up visiting her family, her grandparents, her cousins in Israel every few years. But as I said, this time, this trip, it was a true calling. She just had to go and see and report, and we are so delighted to hear her words this morning as she reflects on that trip and comes back with some very important ideas for us all as to how we can continue to help and support Israel at this very difficult time. Rachel Scheinberg.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi, and Shabbat Shalom, everyone. As the Rabbi mentioned, I have been to Israel many times to visit family over the years. When I had this opportunity to join my mother, it was something that I immediately leapt at. And it was kind of complicated to figure out logistics back at home and at work, but we made it happen. And I will tell you, from the first second of getting to the airport until I returned, it felt like almost everything about being in Israel was different. To give you a few examples, the streets in Jerusalem were quiet, and our hotel was near the Kotel. The hotel itself felt empty. And I learned during the visit that while our hotel in Jerusalem felt empty, there were so many other hotels across Israel that actually were teeming with people because they're full of displaced families right now who had to leave their homes. So, while our hotel felt empty, obviously the rest of the hotels didn't feel that way, but still felt very different. The most obvious, though, difference that I felt while I was in Israel was the streets were quiet. So normally, it's people socializing at all the cafes outside. And normally, there's a lot of honking, right? It's like a national sport in Israel. And there was so little of that. It just felt so different. During our visit, we had a very full schedule each of the days. We were on the Hadassah mission for 4 days, and then I spent an additional 3 days with my family. So the 4 days were filled with visits to the 2 Hadassah hospitals, to actually visit with 3 of the families of hostages. We also met with a former IDF commander in Gaza. We met with President Herzog and his wife, Michal, and I will tell you the exact words he wanted all of us on this delegation to come back and share. And then we did do some uplifting visits as well, so I'll share a few of those examples. So first, the three most horrific moments of our trip. They took us down south to visit Kfar Aza, the first kibbutz that was attacked by Hamas. This kibbutz, when we entered, it was on the east side, so it actually looked pretty normal. And then as the bus parked and we got off, and again, we had to wear vests and military helmets because it still is not safe there. But it's deserted. And if you saw, once you enter, if you saw what the rest of the place looked like, you wouldn't believe it was real. Things were charred out completely. The walls of homes were riddled with bullets. It was just, you couldn't believe this was real. You would have thought it was something set up for a movie. And I will tell you what the most difficult scene was to see there. On the very westmost side of the kibbutz, you can actually see Gaza. I don't know how far it is, but just eyeballing it, I would say it's here to the RDV, if you know Maitland geography. So it's really not that far. And it actually is where they set up, this is really nice, they set up young adults to live. So it's people after they've gone to the army, when they're going back to school, they don't want to quite live with their family again, but they can stay on the kibbutz in these small one-story, cabins, apartments. And there are 24 young people who lived there. 23 of them were murdered, and one of them was taken hostage. Seeing these apartments was so disturbing for so many reasons, besides being, again, full of bullet holes and charred because the terrorists had set fire. You could see they used machetes to get through the screens to get to them. And some of the parents had set up memorials for their kids. Those were obviously very gruesome photos. But it made me, I felt it was the most horrific scene because where they lived looked like the cabins of our Jewish sleepaway camps. And if you know and love sleepaway camps, you know how painful that is. These kids weren't much older than that. They were people in their young 20s. So again, if I can hopefully paint what that picture was like for you, it was horrible. And I'll tell you, our group was spoken to by an IDF soldier who was born in Scotland. And I really didn't know there were Jews in Scotland, let alone serving in the IDF. But he described to us that the IDF wanted to clean things up immediately. But they decided, no, we can't. We actually have to bring media from around the world to see this for themselves because it's just unreal. So he shared that with us, and I wanted to share that with all of you. It was very important for the media to be able to bear witness so that no one could ever deny this. The other thing he shared with us, which, anti-Semitism is now something we're all aware of everywhere. I feel like living here in Central Florida, we're even somewhat in a bubble compared to what others are experiencing. But something he shared was that his parents' house in Scotland now has 24-hour security there because of the threats that they've gotten, knowing that their son's in the IDF. He also said if he was to go back home, he would be arrested at the airport as a war criminal. So again, hearing those perspectives, you just can't imagine it. But it really, it brought the horrors to life. Another very horrific time was we visited and heard from 3 families of hostages. One of them was Rachel Goldberg Poland, who spoke at the Washington, D.C. rally. So maybe you've seen her. She's a very eloquent speaker. But she and the other families are in so much pain. Hearing them, you can't understand how they're able to go on day by day. It's almost easier if they knew their children were on. It's horrific. And they explained that they've tried to talk to every NGO or government representative that they can. And everyone is very sympathetic to what they're going through. And then at the end of their meetings together, the Red Cross, the UN representatives, whoever it might be, then says, but there's nothing we can do. So again, hearing the parent of this hostage say this to us, she's telling the truth. You can feel the pain. And, again, if these words can help share that message a little bit, we all need to keep the hostages in our thoughts, in our prayers, in our dialogue as we're talking to each other, and more so when we're talking to people outside the Jewish community. These hostages should be released. It's now over 150 days. The third very difficult tale that I want to share an ounce of with you was at Hadassah's newest rehab hospital in Jerusalem. We heard from a very gentle-speaking 41-year-old father of two. And he is from Kibbutz Be'eri, which was also attacked and terrorized by Hamas. And he explained to us what it was like that morning. And again, he spent an hour telling us about it. I just want to tell you one or two things he shared. When they moved into their house, his wife said to him, we need a safety lock on the safe room door. And he said he thought she was crazy because the safe room is for missiles. So why do they need a lock? But he did it anyway. And thank goodness, because that's what saved his life. The fact that they had a lock, because the terrorists did come in their house. They did shoot as much as they could. They tried to shoot down the door. It didn't work. He and his family were one of those homes that they set fire to then because they couldn't get in. And he had a very unbelievable story of putting his 6-year-old daughter on his back and just walking through the fire to be able to hopefully reach safety. But he said he was convinced they would die that morning. And luckily, again, through some miracles and also some unbelievable things, they survived. But hearing that story, he could have been any father in this congregation. And really just, it hit home. So now I just want to share a couple of the uplifting things we saw too. The ingenuity, we all know about Israeli ingenuity and genius, right? The things they can create out of what seems like nothing. So the ingenuity of the hospital leaders to be able to react to not just all the needs of the survivors, not just the needs of their staff, especially given that so much of their staff had to then serve in the IDF, but what they created in order to serve their population. So they converted an underground garage into a 140-bed ER. I mean, if you know anything about hospitals or construction, that's an impossible task, but they did it. And if you saw it, it looks like the hospitals look like world-class medical centers. Even this ER now that's underground, what it looked like was almost what we'd see at one of our hospitals here, with a couple of exceptions. Like the fact that the electric boards, where all the plugs go into, are built on what look like ironing boards. Ironing boards. Because that's what they created. I mean, that's what they had, and that's how they were able to get that many connections for all that equipment down there. The other thing that was unbelievable to see was the NICU. These precious, fragile, tiny babies were actually now transported 4 levels underground, where they'll stay for the duration of the war. But just thinking about the effort that took to get them down there, it was just unbelievable. Unbelievable that they had the foresight to think of building the hospital 4 levels underground in case something like this happened, and the fact that they were able to do it. And again, all those babies that made that journey all right. The next really uplifting visit we had was Hadassah runs 2 youth villages. And I really didn't know what these youth villages were before. But they are communities, again, it's almost similar to sleepaway camps, for youth that are refugees from other countries and also who don't have parents or stable households in Israel. And what struck us all on this trip about those youth villages was, again, the foresight of setting them up. One of the youth villages we visited was actually on land given to the founder of Hadassah in 1923 to be able to house refugee children from Germany. So it just celebrated its 100th anniversary, and it continues to house refugee children that 50% of its residents are from the Ukraine or Russia. So again, when you see that, and when you meet these young people, and they're learning everything from how to surf to robotics and media production, I mean, and military preparedness. It was just unbelievable. The third very uplifting thing was being with my family and seeing that even though what these Israelis are going through is nothing any of us should have to go through, life must go on. So kids are back at school. You can see the dynamics between parents and children, just like it'd be in our community, where the parents are obviously glued to the news all the time, but they don't want to be sharing it with the children. But the children are still trying to look over their shoulders to what's going on the phone, right? We could all picture that. But life goes on. While the streets are quieter, on Shabbat afternoon, kids are still playing in the parks. Life must go on. So why I'm here, thank you for listening to me, but I really want to share some of what I learned that we can all be doing. When we met with President Herzog and his wife, we were with our group of 22 American people and 28 international people. And they were from 8 different countries across Europe and South America. So anti-Semitism was obviously a very important topic for us all to talk about. And he was very sincerely interested in understanding what people could share with him. And something he said was, as bad as it might feel, we still have a lot of friends and a lot of very powerful friends. But he said, we must all use our voices to share thanks, to continue asking for support and sharing news that our leaders might just be overwhelmed, not able to listen to. And we must continue to defend Israel anywhere and everywhere we have the ability to, because otherwise our voices are going to get drowned out by the other side. So I want to encourage you, when you see petitions to sign, when you see your congresspeople, your mayor, not just President Biden and our representatives in DC, but any and all leaders, send them quick emails. Call and just leave a 30-second message thanking them, reminding them about the hostages. Our voices are very important. And when I say that, I don't want to leave you all empty-handed. I actually do have cards with me that have a QR code to go be a part of Hadassah's End the Violence campaign. So I want you all to listen to that. The other things we learned, we spoke with a government representative who is a very bright man from the UK, answering senseless questions and responding to senseless remarks, sort of like what the rabbi shared this North Carolina gentleman said, not gentleman, North Carolina anti-Semite said. And what he described to us, he's a man probably in his late 30s, early 40s. He described to us, he is able to respond well because of what he learned in high school as a competitor on his high school debate team. So the message he shared with all of us is get the next generation on their debate teams, because then responding will become like muscle memory. And I wanted to share that because that is something that can help and influence everyone. Finally, I didn't learn this in Israel, but I want to share this as part of this talk. The other thing we can all be doing to help Israel every day is our community and OHEV have wonderful programs for us to attend. Everything from Stand With Us, bringing a speaker here to help teenagers learn how to address anti-Semitic questions and remarks, to the upcoming movie that will be here about the Nova Festival. That we all can do our part in understanding and attending these events and bringing friends, both non-Jewish and Jewish, with us, so that we can all remain educated and be those effective voices for Israel. So again, thank you for this opportunity of speaking today, and thank you again, Rabbi.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That was an excellent, excellent presentation. And I hope that all of us will take to heart what you said about doing our share. You know, the theme of this Shabbat Shkalim is that we all need to pool our resources together. Every person had to give not a shekel, and they couldn't give nothing, half a shekel. And so every little thing that we do, as you said, even just a quick email to local elected officials, anyone in government saying thank you or keeping them aware of what's going on, even something that can take just 2 minutes, that's the half shekel that together with all the other half shekels can maybe really make a huge impact. So thank you so much, Rachel, for your amazing presentation today and for your ongoing devotion to the state of Israel and to our Jewish community. Yasher kochech, we thank you so much.